love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
And I'm not surprised.
And welcome to, as always, a special edition of UFC Addicts. My name is Aaron, and as always, or for the last time of Season 3, I am here to break down Dana White's Contender series. Again, Season 3, Episode 10. This is, I think, the second or third solo one for me. We lost Layden along the way. It's a long, arduous road. We all know this from betting on these cards. Some weeks have been good. Other weeks have been not so good. Let's hope we have another good week here. But it is the finale of what I would deem a pretty successful season of the Contender series. Breaking down these cards solo has been a little more of an effort than maybe it's worth, but at the same point, I've really loved doing it. Thank you all for anybody who has joined along with me on any of these episodes, particularly these last few. I really appreciate you. Get down in the comments, give me your ideas for some parlays you're maybe doing, certain guys you feel you may have a good read on. This isn't a blind pick here, but it's close at times, so I'll be as honest as I can as I go here, but let's go ahead and jump in, don't we? Sure, sounds good, Aaron. Great, Aaron. Let's jump in, and we are starting at featherweight, I believe, and this is a matchup between Dylan Lockard and downtown TJ Brown. And again, this is at featherweight, and I've learned to add a few things here, so I'll add a few stats here, such as opponent's record, which has helped me start to spot some guys I maybe like, but not a telltale sign in MMA. Anyways, Dylan Lockard, training out Sit Yundong in Boston, Mass. Mark Delagrate's camp. He is 5'9", 145er. He is 6-1 overall, 3 TKOs, 1 submission. And the combined record of his opponents being 24-21. Dylan fights kind of with his shoulders pretty square, pretty traditional boxing style. Seems to put a lot of weight on that front foot. He doesn't really blow you away with his physique or his movement or anything, but he's a pretty decent guy. He's shown he definitely can be leg kicked. Even in his last fight that he won in a minute, he got a few outside and inside leg kicks landed on his lead leg. He's definitely got good power, especially when he gets inside. Dylan has decent wrestling, good top pressure, just a solid guy from what it appears early in his career. TJ Brown is going to be by far the most experienced opponent he's faced early in his career, so this is definitely a real test. That brings us over to downtown TJ Brown, and he is 13-6 overall, so we're looking at 19 fights to 7, so nearly a triple the experience in that realm. 4 TKOs and 8 submissions for TJ Brown, so of his 13 wins, only 1 going to decision. So he goes in and gets the finish. Partially, this could be because his combined opponent's record is 81-100. So not that great. A lot of offers in his wins. Quick losses when stepping up in competition is something I've noticed. So TJ is definitely the wilder of the two, pretty wild man in there, for better or for worse. He's coming off a spectacular head kick KO of a 4-1 guy, but still, it was an LFA. When he threw the leg kick, he fell actually as he landed it, but absolutely landed it flush to the side of the head. Part of the reason that I think he does have the style is because of the competition he's faced, so he can get away with some of these risks. I think with this fight, he's facing a much more technical guy than him, even though he triples Lockard's experience. TJ wants it chaotic in order to be successful, while Lockard is looking to control where the fight goes and make the fight be at his pace. I think Lockard's successful in imposing his will, mixes in a few takedowns, and gets a ground and pound finish by TKO in round 2. So I will take Dylan Lockard by TKO in round 2. If they switch up this order too, I apologize, but this is the order I have as of now. No odds come out till the day of the fight for me over here. So again, it won't be too much of a help there, but I would think Lockhart would be the favorite. I would anticipate, but who knows? This brings us to our next fight. This being at heavyweight. It's between a former Ultimate Fighter in Ben Seki Sosoli. I'll go with Ben Sosoli. And he lost to Juan Esposito by decision on the Ultimate Fighter. And he's facing off against the Canadian Dustin Johnson. I will start out by breaking down Ben Sosoli, who is 29 years old, 6 foot, 265, and cuts down to make it. 7-2 overall with 5 TKOs, combined opponent's record of 53-31, so not too bad. Like I said, lost by decision to Esposito, which isn't included on his record as is an exhibition, but he looked pretty below average with regards to his takedown defense, his ability to get up and really do anything off his back. He's basically just a good boxer with good power, can take a ton of damage, so he's super durable, but takedown defense, not much in the way of that. So if you wrestle with Ben, I think he struggles, but if you stand with him, you risk being put out before you can put him out because he's definitely tough. His durability reminds me of a guy, Cabbage Wesley Correa from back in the day. He just took a lot of damage and has that surprising kind of Aussie power, fights similarly to Tai Tuivasa, in all honesty. Maybe not quite as good, and we've seen how Tai started to struggle too. So we'll see. But definitely a tough guy and a big guy, and so has to cut to 265. This brings us to Dustin Johnson, the 6'5", 245-pound heavyweight, 5-0 with 2 TKOs and 1 submission. Combined record of 10-8 with his opponents. That is all of his opponents put together. 10 wins, 8 losses. So he hasn't fought the most experienced competition. One of his KOs was a really nice head kick that put his opponent on his feet, and he followed up with a perfect 1-2 combination. Looked pretty confident at times in there. He's a longer heavyweight. Doesn't quite have the one-punch KO power of Sosoli. But I think movement, cardio, and crispness with his strikes could be a potential strength. I think this being in the smaller octagon could favor Ben, but if this gets past the first round, I like Dustin's chances of taking over. I feel round one's Ben's best shot, but I'll take Dustin Johnson, and I'll take him to get a round 3 TKO actually. So I think Ben will be exhausted by round 3 and take. I think Johnson kind of surprises his opponents sometimes, thinking, I'm not getting hit too hard, and then they've kind of accumulated a decent amount of damage. So I'll take Johnson to get the TKO win here in round number 3. So a rare heavyweight 3rd round knockout. And I think that could be a very good fight. I do look for a potential contract from that fight. And possibly from the first fight too. I think Dylan Lockhart looks legit. This brings us on to our 3rd fight on my card, and that is between the Korean assassin Seunghoon Yu and slippery Peter Barret, another guy out of Sit-Yudong in Boston, Mass. I will break down the Korean assassin Seunghoon Yu first, 29-year-old, 6 foot 170er, 5-0, 3 TKOs, combined opponent's record of 20-11. 2 of his KOs were over guys who were 0-0. He looked like an exciting guy, although the fights I could find were against guys with literally no experience. I think it's kind of hard to predict how he'll do against guys with actual MMA experience, in all honesty, but I think he looks to keep this fight standing. I'm not sure about his takedown defense either. I think he may have trouble with an aggressive forward-moving fighter. And I think slippery Peter Barret could be considered that, which brings me on to Peter Barret, the 5'9". He's fought at 150 and 155 before out of Sit-Yudong in Lausanne MMA also. He's 10-3 overall with a loss to TJ Brown. His opponents have a record of 76 and 146. Although he did face a guy with a 15-75 record, so that did kind of slightly skew it in that direction. It's closer to about 500 overall for his opponents. He definitely seems to be going into this fight very confident from the interviews. I watched Kumate TV, I believe, is one of the YouTube channels. Sorry if I don't quite have your name right. And then the Score interviews with MMA's James Lynch have been very good to get a little peek into these guys' psychology. At one point in Barret's career, he was going through a pretty rough stretch, personally, according to him, and it came through in his performances, losing 3 of 4. But he seemed to have gotten back on track, gotten his life in order, according to him. He's now working over at Lausanne MMA on his ground game, so he's looking to really round out his skills here and make him tougher. I like for these two to go in there and put on a war. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it goes to a decision. And I'll take Slippery Peter Barret to hang on and slip by with a decision win. I think it's going to be a very exciting fight, though. And maybe I'm saying that for all these because it's a finale. So like a TV show, we hope the finale comes through and leaves us wanting more for the next season. But either way, I think this is a good fight. Decision win for Slippery Pete Barret for me. I believe he will be the favorite as well. I would think Ben Sosoli will be the favorite in their fight. And this brings me on to the fourth fight, and this is between Kalin Hill and I'll say Shilobo Impa Kazangane. Shilobo is his nickname, so Impa Kazangane versus Kalin Hill. And I will be breaking that, and this is the battle of at middleweight between two 5-0ers. I will start out with Kalin Hill at Black House MMA, 24 years old, 6'1", 185er. 5-0, as I said, 3 TKOs. Opponent's record of 15-5. With 4 of his 5 fights being in the LFA, he's had a chance to develop his skills on a decent stage. He's been able to display a pretty wide array of stand-up skills, and mostly is known for that at this point. He seems to have okay takedown defense, but that seems to be where you can get him again. So he does seem to want to keep the fight standing. Appears to be in good shape. He's a southpaw too, which is tough for a lot of guys, especially on the feet. But I hope he's continued to work on his wrestling because the stand-up's not the problem for Hill. So I think the small octagon helps him quite a bit here. And that brings us on to his opponent, Impa Kazangane, 5'11", 185er, 25 years old, 5-0, has a submission and 4 decisions. His opponent's combined record is 6-5. It's hard to find much on this guy. I watched some of his amateur fights, and he looked to be a strong guy with his wrestling first base. Not the most crisp of strikers, but this was also in his amateur debut or amateur career. So I think this is a wrestler versus striker kind of matchup. I think that Hill has more of the wrestling than Kanzange has striking, but I think Hill will look to clip him in round 1. So I'm going to take Hill to get a round 1 finish of Kazangane, but I think Kazangane can go in there and look to wrestle and have success with that too. So that's my least confident pick of the night, but I'll take Kalin Hill to be properly prepared there. And this brings us on to what Tapology has as the main event. May be different, or the feature fight of the night, since all of them are 3 rounds. Between Dusko Todorovic and Teddy Bear Ashe. It is Teddy Ashe is his name, Bear's nickname. I will be breaking down Dusko Todorovic. First, the 6'1", 185er, 25 years old, 8-0, 4 TKOs, 2 submissions. His opponent's combined record of 92-47. Beautiful to see a little bit of test there. His last win came in November of last year. It was a TKO, Michelle Pereira, who has gone on to debut in the UFC, the Scorpion, and look really good there. And it was a really impressive back-and-forth fight. Dusko at times in the fight didn't even look like he was throwing hard, but just kept that constant volume and would sneak in, maybe an 80% power shot in between those 60% power shots that were getting in there, disrupting the movement, disrupting the defense. Does a good job of cutting off his opponent, dominating the center as well, I've noticed. And I like that he switches stances and remains effective and fluid. He seems very, very composed inside the cage. I like how he carries himself. And I like the fact that he's really tested himself early on in his career, and seems pretty ready for this test here against Teddy Ashe. That brings me to Teddy Ashe, who at times has fought at 205. But, I mean, so he probably will be the bigger guy here. But Teddy Ashe is the Canadian fighter, 14-4 overall, 6-1 as well. 170 and 109 is his combined opponent's record. He's faced some decent former UFC competition. He was victorious in one of his fights against Dominique Steele by stoppage in round 4, and that was after being stopped by him in the first round. So I always find it impressive when guys have that finishing ability late. Obviously, he won't have an opportunity to get to a 4th round in this matchup, but still, it shows me that against legit competition, he's got power to put away his opponent. So I definitely really like that. And I like the fact that with Dusko, he's still young in his career, this being at 185. So Teddy will be the bigger guy cutting down from 205. Teddy also has a finish of Seth Baczynski, although that was with 2 seconds to go in the 5th round. So again, fair to say he has a really good gas tank. He's definitely not going to go in there and quit. He's willing to throw everything he has on the feet, and he has a willing trading partner in Dusko. I'm kind of concerned that Teddy will leave himself a little bit open to some unnecessary shots and not use his wrestling enough, though. So I'm going to take a round 2 win for Dusko. I think he's going to catch him and win by TKO, but there's definitely a route of victory for Dusko or for Teddy as well, and him being the bigger guy, cutting down from 205. Hopefully the cut's not too rough, but I think this is going to be a very good fight. I will make a bold prediction. I will say 4 contracts on this final episode of the Contender series. I'd love to see all 5. Not quite sure if that will be the case, but yeah, either way, I've really, really enjoyed this season of Dana White's Contender series. I knew I would. The last couple of weeks of doing these solo, I really appreciate you guys sticking around with me. I did my best not to repeat information or be too biased and in certain tendencies that would come through in the research. But either way, I appreciate anybody who's listened to this, anybody who listens to any of our podcasts, any of our breakdowns. This community means a lot to both Layden and I. And so whether it's the insights, whether it's the matchups, whether it's just the bread and butter of the breakdowns of the cards, we appreciate all the listens, all the comments. This has been a beautiful journey, and I look forward to continuing it with you guys. Yeah, with that, I'm out. Enjoy the fights. Stop down in the comments. I'll always be there to respond. Layden will as well. And go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. We're here for every single card. And if you listen this far, and the rest of my spiel. I appreciate you all. Enjoy the fights, and peace out.